My name is Sofia Martinez, and I'm 28 years old. I never imagined my wedding day would become the most humiliating moment of my life. There I stood in my white dress, watching my groom's family fill the entire left side of the church, while my side remained completely empty. Not one member of my family showed up because they all chose to attend my sister Isabella's baby shower instead. The whispers from guests, the pitying looks, and Michael's family trying to fill those vacant seats will haunt me forever. But what I discovered 3 days later would change everything. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. You won't believe how this family betrayal unfolded and what I found out about their true intentions. Let's dive into this shocking tale together. Growing up in the Martinez household meant living in Isabella's shadow from day one. She was 3 years younger than me, but somehow she always managed to capture every ounce of our parents' attention and affection. While I worked hard in school, maintaining a 4.0 GPA and earning scholarships, Isabella could do no wrong with mediocre grades and a rebellious streak that our parents called spirited. When I graduated valedictorian, the dinner conversation centered around Isabella's latest boyfriend drama. When I landed my first job at a prestigious marketing firm, they were more interested in discussing Isabella's decision to drop out of community college to pursue modeling. The pattern continued throughout our 20s. I bought my first apartment at 24 with money I had saved and earned through promotions at work, while Isabella moved back home after another failed relationship and career change. Our parents welcomed her with open arms, converting my old bedroom into a luxury suite complete with a walk-in closet and private bathroom renovation that cost them $15,000. Meanwhile, they had never once visited my apartment or shown interest in my professional achievements. When I met Michael Rodriguez at a conference 2 years ago, I finally felt like someone truly saw and appreciated me for who I was. He was a successful architect, kind, intelligent, and came from a warm, loving family who immediately embraced me. His parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, treated me like the daughter they never had. For the first time in my life, I experienced what unconditional love and support felt like. Michael proposed last Christmas with a beautiful vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother, and I said yes without hesitation. The trouble started immediately when I announced our engagement at Sunday family dinner. Instead of congratulations, I was met with lukewarm responses and barely concealed disapproval. My mother Carmen pursed her lips and made comments about how rushed everything seemed. My father Roberto questioned Michael's financial stability, despite knowing he owned his own architectural firm. My brother James, who was 2 years younger than me, made jokes about marriage being the end of freedom and suggested I was settling because I was getting older. But the real blow came 6 weeks later when Isabella announced she was pregnant. The family's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Suddenly, every conversation, every family gathering, every phone call revolved around Isabella's pregnancy. Our mother immediately started planning elaborate baby showers, shopping trips, and nursery designs. Our father began talking about setting up college funds and expanding the family business to provide for his future grandchild. The pregnancy became the center of their universe, and my upcoming wedding became an afterthought. When Isabella claimed she needed extra support because she was having complications with her pregnancy, our parents immediately rallied around her. She moved back home permanently, claiming she needed help with doctor appointments and managing her symptoms. Our mother Carmen quit her part-time job at the local boutique to become Isabella's full-time caretaker, despite the fact that Isabella's pregnancy appeared to be progressing normally. Every time I tried to discuss wedding plans, I was met with sighs and comments about how they were overwhelmed with Isabella's needs. The manipulation reached new heights when Isabella scheduled her baby shower for the same weekend as my wedding. When I expressed concern about the timing, she burst into tears, claiming that date was the only time the venue was available and that moving it would cause her unnecessary stress that could harm the baby. Our mother immediately sided with Isabella, insisting that the baby shower was more important because Sofia can always get married again, but this is Isabella's first pregnancy. I watched in horror as our parents poured money and attention into Isabella's baby shower while constantly complaining about the cost of my wedding. The baby shower budget quickly ballooned to over $10,000, complete with professional decorators, a catered lunch, and expensive party favors. Meanwhile, my father informed me that he would need to reduce his contribution to my wedding expenses because of unexpected financial pressures related to supporting Isabella. The final insult came when my brother James announced he would be attending Isabella's baby shower instead of my wedding because family comes first, and Isabella needed the support more. When I pointed out that I was also family and getting married was a once-in-a-lifetime event, he laughed and said I was being selfish and dramatic as usual. The exclusion felt deliberate and cruel, designed to send a clear message about my place in the family hierarchy. The morning of my wedding dawned gray and drizzling, which felt like an appropriate metaphor for how the day would unfold. I woke up at 6 in the morning in the bridal suite at the Riverside Inn, surrounded by Michael's sisters and cousins who had volunteered to be my bridesmaids when my own family relationships deteriorated. As I sipped my coffee and tried to calm my nerves, I decided to make one final attempt to reach my family members. I started with my mother, dialing her number with shaking fingers. The phone rang 4 times before she answered with an irritated sigh. "Sophia, I can't talk long. Isabella had a terrible night, and I need help her get ready for the baby shower." When I reminded her that this was my wedding day, she responded with cold indifference. "Honey, you know how important this day is for your sister. She's been looking forward to this celebration for months, and the family needs to be there for her. You have Michael's family, so you'll be fine." The conversation with my father was even more devastating. Roberto answered the phone while clearly in the middle of setting up decorations for Isabella's party. I could hear laughter and music in the background as he explained that he couldn't possibly leave Isabella's baby shower to attend my wedding. "Mija, you have to understand that your sister is in a delicate condition. This party means everything to her, and we promise to be here. You're a strong woman. You don't need us the way Isabella does." The casual dismissal of my feelings and the most important day of my life left me speechless. My brother James didn't even answer his phone. When I tried calling 3 times, he finally sent a text message that read, "Stop being so needy. We already told you we can't make it. Isabella's baby shower is today, and that's where the family needs to be. Grow up and stop making everything about yourself." The cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow, especially knowing that he was choosing a party over his sister's wedding. Isabella herself was the final nail in the coffin. When she answered her phone, I could hear the sounds of celebration in the background. Her voice was bright and cheerful, with no trace of the fragile, sickly persona she had been performing for months. "Oh, Sophia, I can't talk long because my party is starting soon. Everyone is here, and it's absolutely beautiful. Mom and Dad really outdid themselves. I hope your little ceremony goes well." The dismissive tone and obvious lack of concern for my feelings confirmed what I had suspected. This was all a calculated performance designed to upstage my wedding. As I hung up the phone for the last time, the reality of the situation hit me with devastating clarity. Not only would my parents miss walking me down the aisle and sharing the mother-daughter moments I had dreamed of, but their absence would be glaringly obvious to every guest in attendance. Michael's family had invited over 100 people from their side, while I had originally planned for about 60 family members and friends. The empty chairs and missing traditions would create an uncomfortable atmosphere for everyone involved. Michael found me sobbing in the bridal suite 2 hours before the ceremony. His kind eyes filled with rage when I explained what had happened, and he immediately offered to postpone the wedding until we could work things out with my family. But I refused to let Isabella and my parents have that victory. I had worked too hard and dreamed too long about marrying the man I loved to let their manipulation destroy this day completely. Michael's family stepped up in ways that brought me to tears with their kindness. His father Carlos offered to walk me down the aisle, saying it would be his honor to stand in for my own father. His mother Maria helped me fix my makeup and held my hands while I practiced my vows one final time. His sisters rearranged the seating chart to minimize the visual impact of my family's absence, and his aunts and cousins made sure I felt surrounded by love and support. Walking down that aisle was both the most beautiful and heartbreaking moment of my life. Carlos Rodriguez treated the responsibility of giving me away with such dignity and care that I almost forgot the pain of my father's absence. Michael's face lit up with joy and love when he saw me, and for a moment, nothing else mattered except the two of us and our commitment to each other. But when I turned to look at the congregation during the ceremony, the empty section where my family should have been sitting felt like a gaping wound. The reception was a bittersweet celebration. Michael's family went out of their way to make me feel loved and celebrated, sharing stories and toasts that welcomed me into their clan with open arms. But every tradition that should have included my parents felt incomplete. The father-daughter dance became a dance with Carlos Rodriguez, who held me gently while I tried not to cry. The mother-son dance was followed by Maria Rodriguez insisting on a mother-daughter dance with me, which broke my heart with its unexpected tenderness. When it came time for speeches, I had to address the elephant in the room. Standing at the microphone, looking out at the faces of people who truly cared about Michael and me, I managed to say, "Some of you may have noticed that my immediate family couldn't be with us today due to other commitments. While their absence is felt, it has shown me the true meaning of family. Family isn't just about blood relations. It's about the people who show up for you, support your dreams, and celebrate your happiness without conditions." The wedding photos told the story of the day beautifully, but also preserved the painful reality of my family's betrayal. Every formal shot that should have included parents and siblings had glaring empty spaces. The traditional family portraits became portraits of chosen family, with Michael's relatives filling roles that should have been occupied by my own blood relations. Years later, those photos would serve as a permanent reminder of who truly valued my happiness and who chose petty jealousy over family loyalty. 3 days after my wedding, while Michael and I were trying to decompress from the emotional aftermath of the weekend, I made the mistake of checking social media. We had agreed to stay off our phones and focus on each other, but curiosity got the better of me when I saw notification after notification on my Instagram account. What I discovered made my blood run cold and confirmed my worst suspicions about my family's true motivations. Isabella's Instagram account was flooded with professional quality photos from her baby shower, and the event looked nothing like the modest gathering I had been led to expect. The decorations were elaborate and expensive, featuring custom floral arrangements, personalized banners, and a dessert table that must have cost thousands of dollars. The venue was the exclusive Garden Club downtown, the same location where I had wanted to hold my reception but was told it was too expensive for our family's budget. Every single family member was present and accounted for, dressed in their finest clothes and beaming with happiness. My mother Carmen wore a brand new designer dress that I recognized from the expensive boutique downtown, the same boutique where she had refused to help me shop for a mother of the bride outfit because it was too costly. My father Roberto was wearing a new suit and looked more proud and joyful than I had seen him in years. My brother James had brought his girlfriend and seemed to be enjoying himself immensely, raising toasts and participating in party games. The most telling detail was Isabella herself. In every single photo, she looked radiant, healthy, and energetic. There was no sign of the pregnancy complications and fragility that had supposedly required the entire family's attendance and support. She was dancing, laughing, and holding court like the queen of her own celebration. The performance of weakness and vulnerability that had been used to manipulate the family into choosing her event over my wedding was nowhere to be seen. As I scrolled through the comments on the photos, I noticed timestamps that made my stomach drop. The party had clearly lasted well into the evening, with photos posted as late as 9 p.m. My wedding ceremony had ended at 4 p.m., which meant my family could have easily attended both events if they had wanted to. The baby shower had been scheduled for brunch and early afternoon, leaving plenty of time for anyone who cared enough to make the effort. But what really caught my attention were the comments from extended family members and family friends. Multiple people mentioned how months of planning had gone into the event and how Isabella had been talking about this day since she announced her pregnancy. These weren't the words of people describing a last-minute celebration thrown together around pregnancy complications. These were the words of people who knew this had been planned well in advance. I started digging deeper into the social media history, looking at posts and stories from the past few months that I'd been too busy with wedding planning to notice. What I found was a paper trail of deliberate deception that took my breath away. Isabella had been posting about baby shower planning as far back as 3 months ago, including photos of invitation designs and venue visits. Our mother had shared posts about party planning projects and tagged Isabella in posts about event decorators and caterers. The most damning evidence came from a post my brother James had made 6 weeks earlier, showing him at a tasting menu at the Garden Club with Isabella and our parents. The caption read, "Planning something special for the future niece or nephew." The timestamp showed this was posted 2 days after I had announced my final wedding date to the family. They had been actively planning this elaborate baby shower while listening to my wedding plans and offering fake support and enthusiasm. My phone buzzed with a text message from my college roommate Jennifer, who had seen the social media posts. "Sophia, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding, but I saw all the photos from Isabella's baby shower online. I can't believe your family chose that over your wedding day. The shower looked incredibly expensive and elaborate. Are you okay?" Her message confirmed that people outside the family were also noticing the disparity and questioning the family's priorities. As I continued my investigation, I found a group photo posted by a family friend that included someone I didn't recognize. When I zoomed in, I could see it was a professional photographer who had been hired to document the entire event. My family had invested in professional photography for Isabella's baby shower, while I had to negotiate for months to get them to contribute anything toward my wedding photographer. The level of investment and attention to detail was staggering compared to the reluctant support they had shown for my wedding plans. The final piece of evidence came when I checked the location tags on all the social media posts. Multiple photos showed my family at an upscale restaurant near the Garden Club, clearly enjoying a celebratory dinner after the baby shower. The timestamp showed they were still celebrating Isabella's event at the exact same time my wedding reception was ending. While I was dancing my first dance as a married woman surrounded by my new in-laws, my birth family was toasting my sister at an expensive steakhouse. The realization that this had been planned and orchestrated from the beginning hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't about pregnancy complications or competing schedules. This was about my family making a deliberate choice to prioritize Isabella's wants over my once-in-a-lifetime celebration. They had lied to my face for months, while secretly planning an elaborate party designed to directly compete with and overshadow my wedding day. Michael found me crying over my phone in our hotel room, surrounded by the evidence of my family's calculated betrayal. When I showed him the photos and explained what I had discovered, his face went through a series of emotions: confusion, anger, and finally, protective fury on my behalf. "Sophia, this is so much worse than we thought. This wasn't about Isabella needing support. This was about them choosing to hurt you deliberately. No family does this by accident." Despite Michael's advice to take some time before confronting my family, I couldn't sleep or eat until I had answers. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house unannounced, determined to get the truth about their deliberate sabotage of my wedding. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say during the entire drive, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to discover. When I knocked on the front door, my mother answered with genuine surprise and immediate defensiveness. "Sophia, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on your honeymoon or something?" Her casual dismissal of my presence and her obvious discomfort at seeing me confirmed that she knew exactly why I was there. Behind her, I could see leftover decorations from Isabella's baby shower stacked in the hallway, including expensive centerpieces and gift bags that must have cost hundreds of dollars. I pushed past my mother into the living room, where I found Isabella lounging on the couch in workout clothes, scrolling through her phone, and looking perfectly healthy. There was no sign of the pregnancy complications that had supposedly required the entire family's support just 4 days earlier. She looked up at me with a smirk that told me everything I needed to know about her role in this betrayal. Well, Isabella said, not even bothering to stand up. If it isn't the blushing bride. How was your little ceremony? Did you miss having your real family there? The casual cruelty in her voice and her obvious satisfaction at my pain revealed the depth of her manipulation and jealousy. My father Roberto emerged from the kitchen, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing a satisfied expression that quickly turned to annoyance when he saw me. Sophia, what are you doing here causing drama? Can't you see your sister is resting? She had a very exciting weekend, and she needs to take care of herself and the baby. The hypocrisy of his statement, combined with Isabella's obvious good health and energy, pushed me over the edge. Cut the act, all of you, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I saw all the social media posts. I know Isabella's baby shower was planned months in advance. I know you chose to skip my wedding deliberately, not because of any pregnancy emergency. Instead of denial or apology, my confrontation was met with hostile admission. My mother's face twisted with annoyance as she said, "Fine. You want the truth? We never supported this marriage from the beginning. Michael isn't the right man for you, and we hoped you would come to your senses before making a huge mistake. Isabella's baby shower was more important because she's giving us our first grandchild, something that actually matters to this family's future." The casual dismissal of my marriage and my husband's worth hit me like a slap across the face. "You had no right to make that decision for me," I said, my voice growing stronger with righteous anger. "Michael is a good man who loves me, and you sabotaged the most important day of my life because you disapproved of my choice." Isabella laughed from the couch, finally standing up to join the confrontation. "Your wedding was boring anyway, Sophia. Nobody wanted to sit through hours of watching you marry some guy we barely know. At least my party was fun and meaningful. We're celebrating new life, not just some legal contract that'll probably end in divorce anyway." My brother James chose that moment to walk through the front door, carrying shopping bags from expensive stores downtown. When he saw me, his face immediately hardened with the same defensive hostility I was seeing from the rest of the family. "Great. The drama queen is here to ruin another day. What's wrong now, Sophia? Not enough attention at your wedding." The unified front they presented against me was more painful than any individual betrayal. It was clear they had discussed this situation among themselves and decided that I was the problem, not their deliberate cruelty and deception. When I demanded an explanation for their coordinated lies about Isabella's pregnancy complications, my father's response revealed an even deeper level of betrayal than I had imagined. "We used the money we had set aside for your wedding to pay for Isabella's baby shower," Roberto admitted with a shrug. "It was a better investment in the family's future. Isabella's baby will carry on the Martinez name, and her celebration brought the whole family together in a way your wedding never could have." The revelation that they had redirected money specifically allocated for my wedding to fund Isabella's party was devastating enough, but what came next was even worse. My mother pulled out her phone and showed me a group chat that included every family member except me. The conversation thread went back months and contained detailed discussions about how to discourage my marriage and minimize the importance of my wedding. Screenshot after screenshot revealed the depth of their conspiracy. Messages included plans to make Sophia realize Michael isn't worth the drama, discussions about redirecting family resources toward Isabella's pregnancy, and even cruel jokes about my wedding being a waste of time and money. My brother James had contributed messages calling Michael not good enough for the Martinez family standards and suggesting they should let Sophia figure out her mistake on her own. The most heartbreaking discovery was a message from my mother stating, "If we all skip Sophia's wedding for Isabella's shower, maybe she'll get the message about family priorities and call off this ridiculous marriage." They had deliberately planned to use their absence as a weapon to hurt and manipulate me, hoping the humiliation would be so severe that I would cancel my wedding entirely. Isabella's pregnancy had been used as a convenient excuse for their cruelty, but the real motivation was their collective disapproval of my choices and their desire to control my life. When I pointed out that they had never even given Michael a real chance or tried to get to know him, my father's response revealed the extent of their prejudice and manipulation. "We don't need to get to know him," Roberto said coldly. We know he's not right for you, because he's not the kind of man we want in this family. His background, his family, his career, none of it meets our standards. We hoped you would figure that out on your own, but since you're too stubborn to listen to reason, we had to take action. The conversation revealed that they had been undermining my relationship with Michael from the beginning, making subtle comments designed to plant seeds of doubt and creating obstacles to prevent us from getting closer. They had refused to include him in family gatherings, dismissed his professional achievements, and constantly questioned his intentions toward me. When I declared that I was cutting them out of my life completely, their response was to threaten me with consequences I hadn't even considered. My father mentioned the family business, where I had been promised a partnership position, and suggested that my dramatic overreaction might affect my future in the company. My mother brought up inheritance and family property, implying that my rebellion against their wishes could have long-term financial consequences. 1 week after the devastating confrontation with my family, I received a certified letter that made their threats terrifyingly real. The legal documents inside informed me that I was being removed from my position as Vice President of Marketing at Martinez Family Enterprises, the business my grandfather had built and my father currently ran. According to the papers, my recent unreliability and emotional instability made me unfit for continued leadership in the company. The timing was obviously retaliation for my confrontation about the wedding betrayal, but the language used in the termination documents suggested this had been planned for much longer than a week. References to ongoing performance issues and concerns about judgment and professionalism dated back several months, coinciding with the period when I had announced my engagement to Michael. Michael immediately insisted that we hire an attorney to review the documents and explore our options. What we discovered during that first meeting with lawyer Amanda Chun was far more sinister than simple workplace retaliation. The business records revealed a pattern of financial manipulation and fraud that had been systematically excluding me from my rightful position in the family company for years. My grandfather's original business incorporation documents named all his grandchildren as equal partners in the company, with shares to be distributed when we reached 25 years old. I should have received 25% ownership of Martinez Family Enterprises 3 years ago, making me an equal partner with Isabella, James, and any future grandchildren. Instead, I discovered that my shares had been held in trust indefinitely while Isabella and James had already received their full ownership stakes. The deeper our attorney dug, the more evidence we found of systematic financial abuse. Bank account records showed that my father had been forging my signature on important business documents for over 2 years. He had signed my name to agreements that reduced my ownership percentage, transferred my voting rights to other family members, and even authorized the sale of company assets without my knowledge or consent. Isabella's husband, Derek Thompson, whom I had always considered a harmless addition to the family, turned out to be deeply involved in the business manipulation. He had been working as an unofficial financial advisor to my parents, helping them restructure the company's ownership to minimize my stake and maximize Isabella's future inheritance. His background in accounting had given him the knowledge needed to hide their fraudulent activities behind legitimate-looking paperwork. The most shocking discovery came when we found evidence of a secret bank account containing funds that had been siphoned from my trust fund over the past 5 years. My grandfather had set up individual trust funds for each grandchild, funded by company profits and designed to provide financial security for our futures. While Isabella and James had received regular distributions from their trusts, mine had been gradually emptied through unauthorized withdrawals. My uncle Robert Martinez, who served as the family's attorney, had been complicit in the fraud from the beginning. Instead of protecting my interests as an heir and business partner, he had helped my parents create legal documents that systematically excluded me from my inheritance. His law practice had prepared fake contracts, backdated agreements, and fraudulent financial statements designed to make their theft appear legitimate. Property deeds revealed another layer of betrayal. The family home, which my grandfather had intended to pass down to all his grandchildren equally, had been quietly transferred into my parents' names exclusively. A vacation cabin in the mountains that held decades of family memories had been secretly sold, with the proceeds deposited into accounts controlled solely by my father. Even my grandmother's jewelry, which she had specifically bequeathed to be divided among her granddaughters, had been given entirely to Isabella. The investigation revealed that my parents had been planning this financial exclusion since before Isabella's pregnancy announcement. They had used my focus on wedding planning as a distraction while they worked with Derek and Uncle Robert to finalize the transfer of assets and business ownership. My wedding weekend had provided the perfect cover for completing the final paperwork, knowing I would be too busy and too happy to notice what they were doing behind the scenes. Michael's unwavering support during this devastating period became my lifeline. While my birth family had spent years undermining my confidence and questioning my judgment, he helped me see that their manipulation was not a reflection of my worth or capabilities. His belief in my intelligence and strength gave me the courage to fight back against their fraud, even when the legal battle seemed overwhelming. The evidence we gathered painted a picture of a family that had been systematically stealing from me for years while maintaining the facade of love and support. Every holiday gathering, every family dinner, every birthday celebration had been a performance designed to keep me unaware of their betrayal. They had looked me in the eye and lied about my future in the family business, while secretly working to ensure I would receive nothing. Our attorney explained that this type of financial elder abuse was more common than most people realized, but it was particularly heartbreaking when the perpetrators were immediate family members. The psychological manipulation required to maintain such a long-term deception suggested a level of callousness and calculation that was difficult to comprehend. When news of the investigation began to spread through the business community, several of my parents' business partners and associates reached out with additional information. They revealed that my father had been making decisions about major contracts and company direction without consulting the other supposed partners, behavior that would have been impossible if he had truly been sharing ownership and control as legally required. The criminal implications of their actions became clear as our investigation continued. Financial fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy charges were all possible outcomes if we decided to pursue prosecution. The decision to involve law enforcement wasn't easy, but the scope of their betrayal made it clear that this was far more than a family dispute over wedding attendance. Just when I thought my entire extended family had abandoned me, unexpected allies began to emerge from the shadows. The first was my cousin Rachel Martinez, James's younger sister, who contacted me through a private social media message 3 days after our attorney filed the initial legal papers. Her revelation would prove to be the breakthrough we needed to build a strong case against my parents and their co-conspirators. Rachel had been living in California for college and graduate school, which explained why I hadn't seen her at Isabella's baby shower or heard from her during the wedding drama. Her distance from the family politics had given her a clearer perspective on the situation, and she had been quietly documenting concerning behavior for months. When she learned about the legal action through family gossip, she decided she couldn't remain silent any longer. "Sophia, I've been watching this family destroy you for years, and I can't stand it anymore," she wrote in her first message. "I have recordings and documents that prove your parents have been planning this financial takeover since before Isabella got pregnant. They've been using family gatherings to discuss their plans, and they never thought anyone was paying attention or would have the courage to speak up." Rachel's evidence was devastating and comprehensive. She had used her phone to record conversations during family visits, including discussions where my parents openly talked about protecting the family business from Sophia's poor judgment and making sure the Martinez legacy stays with family members who understand our values. The recordings captured my father's voice clearly stating his intention to remove Sophia from the business before she can cause any damage with her liberal ideas and unsuitable marriage. The second unexpected ally was Margaret Walsh, a longtime family friend who had worked as my grandfather's bookkeeper for over 20 years before retiring. Margaret had maintained copies of all the original business documents and trust fund paperwork, and she had been growing increasingly concerned about discrepancies she noticed in the company's financial reports. When she heard about the legal investigation, she contacted our attorney directly with evidence that corroborated our fraud claims. Margaret's testimony was particularly powerful because of her long relationship with my grandfather and her intimate knowledge of his intentions for the family business. Your grandfather specifically told me he wanted all his grandchildren treated equally, she explained during our first meeting. He made me promise to watch out for the younger generation and make sure they received their fair share of what he built. What your parents have done goes against everything he believed in and worked for. Her documentation included original copies of my grandfather's will, the business incorporation papers, and trust fund establishment documents that clearly contradicted the modified versions my parents had been using. She also provided bank records showing the unauthorized transfers and withdrawals that had depleted my inheritance, creating an undeniable paper trail of theft and fraud. Additional family members began reaching out as word of the legal action spread through our extended network. Aunts, uncles, and cousins who had remained silent during years of my parents' favoritism toward Isabella finally found the courage to speak up. Many revealed that they had been uncomfortable with the obvious inequality in treatment, but hadn't wanted to cause family drama by confronting Roberto and Carmen directly. My Aunt Patricia Martinez, Robert's wife, provided perhaps the most damning evidence when she revealed that her husband had been expressing serious concerns about the legal advice he was giving my parents. Robert has been losing sleep over this for months, she admitted. He knows what they're doing is wrong, but your father has been pressuring him and threatening his relationship with the family if he doesn't cooperate. I finally convinced him that protecting criminals isn't worth destroying his legal career. Our legal team grew stronger as more evidence emerged and additional witnesses came forward. The case evolved from a simple business dispute into a complex criminal fraud investigation involving multiple victims and years of systematic theft. The local district attorney's office became interested in the case because of its potential implications for other family businesses and the sophisticated nature of the financial manipulation involved. Isabella's marriage to Derek began showing signs of strain as the legal pressure mounted and their involvement in the conspiracy became public knowledge. Derek had assumed that his role in the fraud would remain hidden behind attorney-client privilege and family loyalty, but the criminal investigation meant that his financial advice and document preparation could be scrutinized by prosecutors. His accounting license and professional reputation were suddenly at risk, creating tension in their marriage that Isabella was not equipped to handle. James attempted to break into my apartment during the third week of the investigation, apparently hoping to steal documents or evidence that might damage the family's defense. Our building's security cameras captured him using a key that he must have copied during previous visits, and his arrest for breaking and entering added another criminal charge to the growing list of legal troubles facing my family. The media attention surrounding the case began attracting other victims of similar family business fraud schemes. Our attorney received calls from people across the state who had experienced comparable betrayals by relatives and business partners. The case became a symbol of the need for stronger legal protections for family business partners and inheritance beneficiaries. My parents' attempts to intimidate me through other relatives backfired spectacularly when several family members recorded their pressure tactics and turned the evidence over to our legal team. Phone calls and text messages where Roberto and Carmen threatened financial retaliation and social ostracism if I didn't drop the legal action became additional evidence of their willingness to use manipulation and coercion to protect their criminal behavior. Community support rallied around Michael and me as the details of the family's betrayal became public knowledge. Former business associates of my grandfather reached out to express their support and share their own memories of his intentions for the family legacy. Local business leaders who had respected my professional work began offering opportunities and partnerships that demonstrated their confidence in my abilities despite my family's attempts to undermine my reputation. The legal victories began accumulating rapidly once our evidence was fully assembled and the criminal investigation gained momentum. The court's decision to freeze all family assets pending the outcome of the fraud charges sent shockwaves through my parents' carefully constructed world of financial manipulation and social respectability. Within 48 hours of the asset freeze, the true scope of their desperation and panic became apparent. Isabella's reaction to the financial pressure was immediate and devastating to her marriage. When Derek realized that his involvement in the conspiracy could result in criminal charges and the loss of his professional license, he immediately retained his own attorney and began distancing himself from the Martinez family. The man who had been so eager to help steal my inheritance suddenly had no interest in supporting his wife when their own financial security was threatened. The dissolution of Isabella's marriage happened with stunning speed. Derek moved out of their shared apartment within a week of the asset freeze, taking his belongings and leaving her to face the legal consequences of their actions alone. His abandonment during her pregnancy added a layer of personal crisis that Isabella was completely unprepared to handle, especially given her lifelong dependence on family support and financial security. My parents' business partners began severing ties with Martinez family enterprises as soon as the fraud investigation became public knowledge. Contracts were canceled, partnerships were terminated, and professional relationships that had taken decades to build were destroyed within a matter of weeks. The family's reputation in the business community, which my grandfather had spent his lifetime establishing, crumbled under the weight of criminal accusations and public scrutiny. The criminal charges filed against Roberto, Carmen, Derek, and Uncle Robert were extensive and serious. Federal prosecutors became involved when the investigation revealed that some of the fraudulent activities had crossed state lines and involved banking institutions. Wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy, theft, forgery, and money laundering charges carried potential prison sentences that could keep my parents behind bars for decades. James's arrest for breaking and entering provided prosecutors with additional leverage against the family. His willingness to commit crimes to protect the conspiracy demonstrated the lengths to which they were willing to go to hide their fraudulent activities. His plea bargain negotiations included agreements to provide testimony against our parents in exchange for reduced charges. The family home, which had served as the symbol of Martinez family success and stability for over 30 years, went into foreclosure as legal fees mounted and assets remained frozen. Watching the for sale sign go up in the front yard of my childhood home should have been devastating, but instead it felt like poetic justice for the years of betrayal and manipulation I had endured. My parents' health began deteriorating rapidly under the stress of legal proceedings and financial ruin. Carmen developed severe anxiety and panic attacks that required medical intervention, while Roberto's blood pressure reached dangerous levels that landed him in the emergency room twice. Their attempts to use their health problems to generate sympathy and delay legal proceedings were met with skepticism from prosecutors who had seen similar tactics in other white-collar crime cases. The community's response to the scandal was swift and unforgiving. My parents were asked to resign from charitable organizations, country club memberships were revoked, and social invitations dried up completely. The social status they had worked so hard to achieve and maintain became worthless overnight as former friends and associates distanced themselves from the criminal activity. Isabella's desperate attempts to reconcile with me began as soon as Derek abandoned her and the family's financial situation became dire. Her phone calls, text messages, and letters all followed the same pattern: denial of her involvement, claims that she had been manipulated by our parents, and pleas for me to drop the legal action for the sake of family unity and her unborn child. Her claims of innocence were undermined by the extensive evidence of her active participation in the conspiracy, including her role in scheduling the baby shower to conflict with my wedding and her enthusiastic participation in family discussions about excluding me from business decisions. The recordings and documents clearly showed that she had been a willing participant, not an innocent victim of our parents' manipulation. My strength and confidence grew with each legal victory and each display of support from the community and extended family members who had finally found the courage to speak out. The woman who had once been afraid to confront her family's favoritism had become a powerful advocate for justice and accountability. Michael's unwavering support and belief in my worth had helped me develop the courage to fight for what was rightfully mine. The media coverage of the case attracted attention from family business consultants and legal experts who used our situation as an example of the importance of proper documentation and oversight in family enterprises. Our story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of informal business arrangements and the need for independent legal representation in family financial matters. Former friends and colleagues who had witnessed my family's treatment of me over the years began reaching out to apologize for their silence and offer belated support. Many admitted that they had known something was wrong with the family dynamics, but hadn't wanted to interfere in what they assumed was a private matter. Their testimony about my character and professional competence helped counter my parents' attempts to portray me as unstable and unreliable. The investigation revealed that other family members had been harmed by my parents' financial schemes over the years, including elderly relatives who had been convinced to sign over property and assets under false pretenses. The pattern of exploitation and manipulation extended far beyond my own situation, creating a broader criminal case that attracted serious attention from law enforcement agencies. As the legal proceedings moved forward, I experienced moments of doubt about the wisdom of pursuing criminal charges against my own parents. The devastation of their health, finances, and social standing was complete, and part of me questioned whether justice had already been served. However, the advice of attorneys, therapists, and other abuse survivors reminded me that accountability was essential for healing and preventing future victimization. The courtroom was packed on the morning of the final hearing, with family members, community leaders, and media representatives filling every available seat. After months of legal maneuvering, plea negotiations, and evidence gathering, the moment of reckoning had finally arrived for my parents and their co-conspirators. The weight of their betrayal and the scope of their criminal activity would be laid bare before a judge who had the power to deliver real consequences for their actions. My victim impact statement was the most difficult but empowering speech I had ever given. Standing at the podium, looking directly at my parents for the first time since our devastating confrontation months earlier, I found my voice and spoke with clarity about the years of manipulation, financial abuse, and emotional cruelty that had defined our relationship. The words that had been trapped inside me for decades finally found their way out. Your Honor, the defendants didn't just steal money from me. They stole my sense of family, my trust in the people who were supposed to love and protect me, and years of my life spent questioning my own worth and judgment, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. They used my love for them as a weapon against me, manipulating my desire for family connection to hide their theft and fraud. They celebrated my sister's pregnancy while systematically destroying my financial future, and they chose to miss my wedding because supporting me was less important than maintaining their conspiracy. Isabella's appearance on the witness stand was devastating to watch, but necessary for the pursuit of justice. Her pregnancy had progressed to the point where her condition was obvious, adding a layer of complexity to the legal proceedings that prosecutors had to navigate carefully. Her testimony revealed the depth of her involvement in the conspiracy and her understanding of how her actions had harmed me, but her attempts to claim victimhood were undermined by the extensive evidence of her willing participation. The breakdown that followed Isabella's cross-examination was dramatic and complete. Years of being protected from consequences and enabled in her selfishness had not prepared her for the reality of legal accountability. Her sobs and pleas for mercy rang hollow after months of evidence, showing her enthusiastic participation in the plan to exclude me from the family business and inheritance. Derek's testimony against my parents and Uncle Robert was particularly damning because of his intimate knowledge of the financial manipulation and document forgery that had made their fraud possible. His decision to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges provided the technical expertise needed to explain the complex financial crimes to the jury in terms they could understand. My parents' defense attorney made a last-minute attempt to dismiss the case by arguing that this was a family dispute rather than criminal fraud, but the overwhelming evidence of forgery, theft, and conspiracy made that argument impossible to sustain. The systematic nature of their crimes and the involvement of multiple victims extended far beyond the realm of family disagreements into clear criminal behavior. Uncle Robert's law license was suspended pending the outcome of his criminal case, effectively ending a legal career that had spanned over 25 years. His involvement in the conspiracy had violated every ethical standard of the legal profession, and his attempts to claim that he was simply following family loyalty over legal obligations showed a fundamental misunderstanding of professional responsibility. James's plea bargain testimony provided crucial evidence about the family's long-term planning and coordination of the fraud scheme. His detailed knowledge of conversations and planning sessions helped prosecutors establish the timeline of criminal activity and demonstrate the premeditated nature of their actions. His cooperation also revealed additional evidence that had not been uncovered during the investigation. The judge's decision to impose significant prison sentences on my parents sent a clear message about the seriousness of financial fraud and family abuse. Roberto received 7 years in federal prison, while Carmen was sentenced to 5 years due to her slightly lesser role in the document forgery. The sentences were longer than their attorney had expected, reflecting the judge's concern about the systematic nature of their crimes and their lack of genuine remorse. The financial restitution ordered by the court exceeded even our most optimistic expectations. In addition to recovering my stolen inheritance and business ownership, the judge ordered payment of punitive damages, legal fees, and interest on the stolen funds. The total amount effectively transferred the majority of my parents' remaining assets to me, reversing years of financial manipulation in a single legal decision. Isabella's loss of Derek's support during her pregnancy created additional complications for her future. The stress of the legal proceedings, combined with the collapse of her marriage and financial security, created concerns about her ability to provide stable care for her child. Social services became involved to ensure the baby's welfare, adding another layer of consequence for her participation in the family's criminal behavior. The liquidation of Martinez family enterprises to pay restitution and legal fees marked the end of my grandfather's business legacy, but also provided an opportunity for a fresh start. The company that had been built on principles of hard work and family unity had been corrupted by greed and favoritism, making its dissolution perhaps inevitable regardless of the legal proceedings. My vindication in court was complete, but came with an emotional cost that would take years to fully process. Winning the legal battle against my family provided justice and financial security, but it couldn't restore the relationships that had been destroyed by years of betrayal and manipulation. The empty seats at my wedding would always represent the family that chose cruelty over love, regardless of any legal victory. The community's support and recognition of my courage in pursuing justice provided some comfort during the aftermath of the legal proceedings. Local business leaders who had followed the case began offering opportunities and partnerships that demonstrated their respect for my integrity and professional capabilities. The woman they had watched fight for justice was someone they wanted to work with and support. Former family friends and extended relatives who had remained silent during years of my parents' manipulation finally felt free to express their support and apologize for their inaction. Many admitted that they had known the family dynamics were unhealthy but hadn't understood the extent of the financial fraud and criminal behavior. Their belated acknowledgement of my mistreatment provided some validation, even though it came too late to prevent years of harm. 6 months after the final court hearing, Michael and I stood in the garden of our new home, surrounded by the people who had truly supported us through the darkest period of our lives. The house we had purchased with my recovered inheritance was modest but beautiful, with space for the family we hoped to build and gardens where we could create new traditions far from the toxic legacy of my birth family. The healing process had been more complex and challenging than I had anticipated, even with the validation of legal victory and financial justice. Therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Kim helped me understand the psychological patterns of family abuse and manipulation that had shaped my childhood and young adulthood. Learning to trust my own judgment and recognize healthy relationships required conscious effort and patience with myself as I unlearned decades of conditioning. Michael's unwavering patience and love throughout my recovery process continued to amaze me daily. While I worked through trust issues and emotional triggers left by years of family betrayal, he provided consistent support without trying to rush my healing or minimize my pain. His family's continued inclusion of me in their traditions and celebrations helped fill the void left by my birth family's absence, though it could never completely replace what I had lost. The successful launch of my new marketing consultancy, built with funds recovered from the legal settlement, provided professional fulfillment and financial independence that my family had tried to deny me. Working with small business owners and family enterprises, I was able to help others avoid the pitfalls and manipulation that had nearly destroyed my own financial future. The business grew rapidly as word spread about my expertise and my personal experience with family business fraud. My work with other victims of family financial abuse became an unexpected source of healing and purpose. Speaking at conferences and support groups about my experience helped other people recognize the signs of manipulation and find the courage to seek justice. The letters and emails from people who had been inspired by my story to confront their own family abusers provided meaning beyond any monetary settlement. Rachel Martinez remained my closest connection to the extended family, and our friendship had grown stronger through the shared experience of standing up to family corruption. Her decision to testify against her own uncle and aunt had required tremendous courage, and our mutual support had helped both of us navigate the complicated emotions of family betrayal and justice. Her presence at family holidays and celebrations helped maintain some connection to my heritage while establishing healthier boundaries. Margaret Walsh became an honorary grandmother figure in our lives, sharing stories about my grandfather's values and intentions that helped me understand the legacy I was truly inheriting. Her continued friendship and guidance provided a connection to the positive aspects of my family history while helping me distinguish between the corruption of my parents' generation and the integrity of earlier family members. The occasional moments of grief for the family relationships I had hoped for, but could never have, were natural parts of the healing process. Holidays and special occasions sometimes triggered sadness about the empty chairs and missing phone calls, but they no longer carried the sharp pain of fresh betrayal. The grief had become manageable and was balanced by gratitude for the authentic relationships I had found and built. No contact with my parents and siblings remained the healthiest choice for my mental and emotional well-being. Their imprisonment had made communication impossible initially, but even after their eventual release, I maintained firm boundaries about any relationship. The forgiveness work I had done in therapy was for my own peace, not for the restoration of relationships with people who had shown no genuine remorse or change. The renewal of our wedding vows on our first anniversary was everything our original ceremony should have been. Surrounded by Michael's family, Rachel, Margaret, and friends who had supported us through the crisis, we celebrated our commitment with people who truly valued our happiness. The photos from that day showed faces filled with love and joy, creating the family portrait that had been missing from our wedding album. My advocacy work for stronger legal protections for family business partners and inheritance beneficiaries had attracted attention from state legislators who were working on reform proposals. Testifying before legislative committees about the need for better oversight and protection gave larger meaning to the suffering I had experienced and potentially prevented similar abuse for future victims. The gradual rebuilding of my self-confidence and ability to trust had been one of the most important outcomes of the healing process. The woman who had once questioned her own perceptions and accepted cruelty as normal had developed into someone who could recognize manipulation immediately and establish healthy boundaries without guilt. The skills I had learned through necessity had made me a better friend, wife, and business partner to others. Looking toward the future, Michael and I were excited about the possibility of starting a family and creating the kind of loving, supportive environment that every child deserved. Our children would grow up knowing their worth wasn't conditional on performance or compliance, and they would understand the difference between healthy family dynamics and toxic manipulation. The financial security provided by the legal settlement had removed the economic control that abusive families often use to maintain power over their victims. Having independent resources meant that I would never again be vulnerable to financial manipulation or threatened with economic consequences for standing up for myself. The Martinez family name would continue through Isabella's child, but the values and integrity that my grandfather had built his legacy upon would live on through my choices and actions. Creating a new family tradition based on authenticity, respect, and unconditional love felt like the best way to honor his memory and intentions for future generations. What happened to my family taught me that blood relationships don't guarantee love, loyalty, or even basic respect. The people who show up for you, support your dreams, and celebrate your happiness without conditions are your true family, regardless of genetics or legal documents. Some relationships can't be saved, and recognizing that truth isn't giving up, it's choosing self-respect and emotional health. If you've experienced family betrayal or financial abuse, remember that you deserve relationships based on love and respect, not manipulation and control. Speaking up for yourself isn't selfish, and seeking justice isn't vengeful when you're protecting yourself and potentially preventing future victims. Your worth isn't determined by how family members treat you, and you have the power to create the life and relationships you truly deserve. I'd love to hear your thoughts about family loyalty versus personal boundaries in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between family relationships and your own well-being? How do you handle situations where family members don't support your major life decisions? Please hit the like button if this story resonated with your own experiences, and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding your strength. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your happiness and peace of mind are worth fighting for, even when the people who should love you most are the ones trying to take them away.